Hi everyone, it's Marianne, and for today's video, I'm sharing with you my entire plant collection for fall 2022. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm really excited to share with you my entire plant collection for fall 2022. I do my plant collection videos every spring and fall of every year just to document and keep track and see the changes in my plant collection within the growing season. And also, I've been a plant parent now for like almost 4 years, and right now I think I'm the happiest and the most proud of my plant collection because if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I've been trying to curate my plant collection for the last year or so because I used to have like a lot of plants and I like to keep plants just for the sake of keeping them. I had a hard time letting go of plants that I don't really like or not in love with or no longer in love with, but I just want to keep them and hoard them. But now I just come to the point that I really kind of pick and choose which plants that I want to be part of my plant collection. And as I will see later, I would say 95, maybe even 99% of them are all plants that I want in my plant collection. But yeah, there might be one or two, which you'll see later on, that I'll mention that I'm thinking of maybe letting go in the future. But for the most part, like I said, this is the plant collection that I've been wanting ever since I started my plant journey. But I'm not saying this is also it for my plant collection. There's definitely going to be some changes in the future. Some plants are going to come in and some plants are going to go. But right now, I do think my plant collection is at its peak, where I'm happy with the amount of plants that I have, the type of plants that I have, and also their overall condition, health, and growth. So I'm really excited to share all of my plants with you today. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Marianne. Welcome to My Wasteless Life, where I take you along my houseplant and sustainable lifestyle journey and share with you some of my tips and tricks along the way. So if that type of content interests you, make sure to subscribe to my channel before the end of this video, and also make sure to like and comment down below. I would love to hear from you. And my second announcement is the 2023 Plantiful Planner is now available in my Amazon storefront. I don't have the physical copy of the planner yet. When I do, I'll be making a separate video to officially launch it. But in case you didn't know, last year I came out with the 2022 planner, which is this one, and I made a 2023 version of that, which is like a more improved version. Now that I've been using this myself the entire year, so I kind of like made improvements for the 2023 version. And I also created a couple of other versions that you might like when it comes to the Plantiful Planner. So go check that out. I'll have the links down in the description. And of course, and as mentioned, once I have the physical copies in my books, I would definitely do a video officially launching those planners. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with the plants that I have on this table. And you can see I have most of my plants in poles at the back and some of my smaller plants in front of it, and then below it are more plants, and that's the potting mat that I DIY'd early in the year. So if you want to see how I made that, I'll link it in the cards and also down the description. But let's go check out my plants up here. So the very first one is my skeleton key pothos, and I have since extended the pole of it, and the leaves are starting to mature. As you can see here, it has fenestrations. I actually didn't know skeleton key pothos could fenestrate, but you could also see it's starting to form the key shape here, and it's mainly coming from this vine. The other vines are still kind of like juvenile, and I still keep wrapping it around the pole so that I don't keep extending the pole with just juvenile leaves. But I think the main one is going to be this, and eventually, I don't know, I might just like keep this one and focus the growth upwards with this main one. We will see. But so far I'm liking it, but I do really want it to mature because I got it, of course, for the mature shape, not the juvenile shape. But we'll see what happens. I'm considering I started with this one with a single leaf cutting. It has come far, and I'm pretty sure it would mature eventually. As you can see, it's already starting to, and I didn't even know it fenestrates like that. But I'm really happy to see the growth in this one. And right next to it is my Scindapsus Silvery Ann, which is one of my favorite Scindapsus because of this variegation right here. I rarely see Silvery Ann this variegated. I mean, I might be wrong, but this is kind of like my very first silvery Ann, and that's why I'm like hell-bent on keeping it and making sure that it does well. But it is experiencing a lot of yellowing, probably not right now, but actually here, see. So it's kind of like the same issue that I was having with my Syndapsis argyrius, which is very similar to this, but like a lot less silver variegation. And when it just like starts to trail or grow a lot, it just deteriorates in condition for me for some reason. So I'm hoping this is not what's happening to this. I did give it a pull. It used to be a trailing plant, but I think what I plan to do with this eventually, if it continues to deteriorate, is to basically just save this vine, which has the most white or silver variegation, and start over. So it might mean me taking it out from the pole, which I might have to do anyways because I don't really like the pole it's in right now. It's in a bendable pole, but as you can see, it's not really working out well, and this is such a hazard. It could like poke me in the eye one day, so I'm just like, maybe I do have to kind of at least give it a new pole if I'm not starting over with it and not propagating it. But we'll see what happens. It was starting to shingle on this, as you can see here, but again, like the pole itself is, so it was starting to shingle like over here, but as mentioned, the pole is not really like the best for it or for any plant really. So I have to like change out the pole of it really soon. And right next to it is my Monstera stadleiana. I did repot the albo and the aurea together, and I did that to save space. And second, the variegation on either one is not really much. Like with the albo, I just keep getting sprinkles like this, and with the aurea, it started out very variegated, but then eventually it just started shooting out just green leaves. So I've actually pruned this several times now, and in hopes that it would push out a more variegated leaf, but so far it hasn't. I pruned it again, and same thing with the albo, just because it is growing a lot faster than the aurea, and I kind of like want them to grow at the same rate or at least close to each other. So I did prune it a little bit, and hoping also for like a little bit more variegation on the albo, but so far it's just like a lot more variegation at the bottom leaves than I am getting at the top leaves. Maybe they're not getting enough light, I don't know, but I think this is one of the plants that I place outside or really close to the window during the growing season. So not really sure what's going on with it. It is in leca, probably maybe needs more nutrients, and as you can see, and so far it's doing well. If you're wondering what I did with the cuttings, honestly, I just threw them away, which I know is terrible. Some I did trade or give away previously, but I think the latest pruning that I did, I just threw them away because they were not variegated at all, and I really doubt that the variegation would come back. So I just threw them away. I do feel bad though. I feel like I should be saving my cuttings and just give them away, but sometimes I get lazy to do the whole giveaway thing. And right next to it is my Philodendron verrucosum. Gave it a D-shaped moss bowl. I talked about this plant at length in my fall favorites video, so if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But as I mentioned in that video, this one I got off a trade as a rescue cutting. The person who had it wasn't really having the best luck with verrucosum. I also told the verrucosum it's not a great plant to start with if you're a philodendron beginner. But you know what? I was getting it for free. Why not take a chance on it? So I did, and honestly, I don't think I did anything different, but I think compared to my other plants that failed in propagation, this one I just kind of like left it alone. So I propagated it in sphagnum moss and just left it alone, and just, you know, if it propagates, it propagates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And it did propagate. And now all of these are new growth. The old leaf that it came with, I already cut off because it wasn't looking too good. So all of these are new growth, and you can see how large this one is. I don't think I was able to provide a close-up in my fall favorites video. It's also starting to mature a little bit more, and you can see the backside and the fuzzy petiole. So now I'm kind of like seeing the appeal of the verrucosum, why like a lot of people like this. But I'm also happy too that it is growing very compact. Like this stem or petiole part is not very long, because I've seen a lot of philodendrons just have like very long stems and petioles that covers too much of the moss bowl, or you have to give it like way too much support. With this one, it starts like at the bottom and it's already compact. So I kind of like hope it continues that way. And I'm really excited. This one, I think matures really fast or becomes large really fast. So I'm excited and same time scared because I don't know if I'm gonna have a space for it, but excited for that one. And right next to it is my Syndapsa Silver Hero. So this is a plant that I'm also like really proud of because I started with this one as a basically failing node because this was from a failed import order from Etsy, which highly do not recommend buying plants from Etsy, especially an import order. But I was able to save it from the nodes, and now it's this. It's like really amazing. I think I have about 3 plants over here. So that's like 1, 2, and there's one more at the back that's not growing as fast as the other 2, but that's okay. But as you can see, I also made it shingle, which I didn't think I was able to do, but I made it shingle. And this is kind of like the newest leaf. It's so large. And the only thing though, because it's not getting a lot of light right now, and it's not getting a 360 light, it's not getting light all around it. So the other vine, instead of just like being flat on the moss bowl, it's kind of like going this way so it could face light a little bit more, which I mean, right now it's okay, but we'll see if I could remedy that in the future. And this small one is also kind of like, instead of lying flat because it's in search of light, it's kind of like lifting itself up towards the light. So not sure about that one. I am thinking of eventually removing this and maybe selling it and treating it and just focus this on this too. So we will see. Again, if there are any takers or anybody interested in a Syndapsa Silver Hero and would like to trade / want to purchase it from me, DM me on Instagram or email me. My contact information is down in the description, and I'll be happy to discuss and see what we can do. And right next to it is the Syndapsis Silver Lady. That's right, the Silver Lady. So this one is also in a bendable moss bowl, but this one works a little bit better than the one that the Syndapsis argyrius has. And what I like about this one is I could just like extend it by the time this one reaches the top, which I'm surprised is almost about to reach the top. And like the Syndapsis Silver Hero, I'm really happy that this one shingled because that was my goal for it. And this one I also got as a cutting from Jabs from Plants Alive. I did a trade with him, but he has an amazing greenhouse in Silver Spring. If you want to check it out, one of the best nurseries and greenhouse in the DMV area, in my opinion. And also Cultivate the City is located there now too. So really worth checking out. With this too, my focus is to really give them a lot more light during winter season so that they continue to shingle and the gaps between the leaves don't grow wide, so I don't have to prune them. So if not, I'll probably have to prune them just to keep it like shingling the way that I want to. As you can see here, it's kind of like starting to do that, but I feel like this leaf would also grow large and cover that gap area. So I'm pretty okay with it, but kind of like with this one too, it's doing the same thing as the Syndapsa Silver Hero. Like the leaves are kind of like pushing itself away from the pole so that it could reach more light. So only thing about the plants heading into the winter season and them getting a lot less light, I am trying to put a grow light setup for them. Previously, they were underneath this table. We're going to talk about this setup, but I'm waiting for the grow lights to come in so that I could put it underneath here. So I might switch up the setup from here to up here. We will see. But for now, they are getting the most light being on top of the table. Let's check out the plants right in front of them, starting with my philodendron mican. So this one is my second mican, but this is a propagation of the mother plant. And I lost the mother plant. I think I gave it away or it just died. I can't remember anymore. But this one started as a 4-leaf cutting, and look at it now. It has grown so much and is also like starting to trail. And this is probably a plant that is a good candidate to put up in a moss bowl, kind of like with my silvery Ann. Maybe that's something that I will do in the future. We would see, but right now I do like it as a trailing house plant. But if I do put it up in the pole, I think I will get much larger leaves, but we will see. Again, like I said, I like it better as a trailing plant right now. And with the micas, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. I'm the same way with most of my philodendron hederaceum plants. I'm actually like down to like maybe 2 or 3 philodendron hederaceum plants. I just like the Apropenum aureum more than this one when it comes to pothos like houseplants. This to me doesn't trail as beautifully as an Apropenum aureum, but that's just me. I think it's just like my personal preference. But it is a great plant. I mean, I always love the velvety leaves of the micans. It makes it more unique compared to other philodendron hederaceum or even Apropenum aureum houseplants. And right next to it is my philodendron pink princess. I got this off a trade as well. And as mentioned in previous videos, and especially in my fall favorites videos, pink princess philodendron is not a hype that I got on board with for the longest time. And honestly, I don't think I still am, but I am starting to appreciate the plant, and that's why I named it one of my favorites for the fall season. And I'm really glad that the prices for the pink princess philodendron has corrected itself and now has becoming more affordable. But honestly, it could be a little bit more affordable, but I'm pretty sure we'll get there. And as you can see, the new growth don't really have a lot of pink variegation in it. I'm hoping the new one that's coming out will have it, but I'm really excited and I'm glad to have one, to be honest, and to get it for free. But like I said, the prices are going down, so it's nice to be able to afford it if I wanted to get one for myself. And right next to it is not a philodendron, it's a Hoya. It's a Hoya polyneura, also something I got off a trade last year. And this one also started as a 2-leaf single cutting, and now it has grown so much. This one propagates very easily. I do prune it quite often so that I could like make cuttings and then stick it in the sphagnum moss so that it would propagate more. And I think right now I have like maybe 4 cuttings, plants growing out of this right now. And as you can see, there's a new growth. But I had 2 strands that had not yellowing, but it was very light green with spots on it. And it doesn't look like variegation. It looks like it was diseased. So I did cut it off. I think those were the cutting points. And we'll see what happens with those, if those are still viable grow points. But so far I'm happy with it and I really like it as is. I think it was also suffering from spider mites, which I think led to those 2 strands or 2 vines having yellow spots that looks like it's diseased. But right now I think it has corrected itself and it's doing pretty well, so I'm really glad about that. And right to next, my polyneura is a philodendron. This is a philodendron white wizard. As you can see, not very variegated. I was told by the seller, I got this from the Stride Stem shop during their pop-up at the Plants Alive market in Silver Spring. And I got this for, I think, $25, I believe. And I was told that the variegation don't really come out as much in its juvenile form. I would see it more as it matures, but so far, I haven't seen a variegated leaf under my care, although if you look closely on the leaf, you can see the variegation on the stem. And the thing is though, the white variegation is appearing on like the edge of the stem. It is not manifesting itself on the actual leaf when it grows. So the variegation needs to be in the middle of that for it to show up. So I'm hoping with this new one that's about to come out, I think the variegation is a little bit more in the middle, so hopefully I see it in the new leaf. I kind of like see a bit of it, but we will see. We never really know until the leaf unfurls. But yep, and I will be talking more about the plants that I bought this year and kind of like reviewing and rating them in upcoming videos, so watch out for that one. And this one is a philodendron painted lady. Also got this off a trade, and I wasn't really interested in this plant, to be honest, but when I went to that plant swap, I was kind of like, I was in a very generous mood. I was kind of like, I'm just trying to give out my plants. If somebody wants to trade for it and they don't really have something that I want, I will still go ahead with the trade anyways. And she actually initially offered a Hoya. I don't know what it is, but it's a Hoya that is very popular. But I'm not a Hoya person, but I recognize this. So in exchange for a cutting of my Hoya polyneura and my variegated string of hearts that is propagated, I said I'll just take this one. And I know this was popular for a while, but this has become very affordable since. So I mean, I like it. I do like the variegation. I do think it's a little bit more unique compared to other philodendrons. I like the mosaic type of variegation it has with the yellow, lime, and the regular green. Not really my favorite philodendrons. I don't know if I'm actually going to keep this plant. We will see. But right now, I'm actually do liking this a little bit more than the philodendron white wizard, just because I didn't sign up to have a green philodendron. I want something that's variegated. But it's the thing with the white wizard, and I think it's same is true for the white princess and the white knight, and even the pink princess philodendron. The variegation just doesn't come out in each leaf, kind of like with a Prepenum aurea or even like a Stadliana albo, although like I said, this one was starting to revert, or even like some plants that are variegated. The variegation in philodendrons are just not consistent. You don't get them in each leaf. And right next to it is a Dischidia. This is a Dischidia Iontha variegata, I believe. And this is also one of my favorite string off plants, just because it's very sturdy, it's very low maintenance, and I don't really have to do much with it. I water it every now and then. It is in like a semi-leca soil situation, so I do like put or give it a water reservoir. That's why it's in this like yellow teapot planter that I got of Goodwill for like $1.99, and it has like fully white leaves. At one point it has like at one point it had a strand that is fully white leaves. It has died out since, because you know white leaves don't really last that long, but it lasted for quite a while, so I'm really happy about it. And I think it's starting to do or have another one right in here. So I highly recommend this if you want a string of plants that's low maintenance. I prefer this compared to like the succulent like string of pearls, string of tears, or string of dolphins, whatever those type of succulent type of string of plants. I highly recommend this one instead. Very low maintenance and very beautiful. And here are the plants underneath the table that is on the potting mat that I DIY'd. And so let's start with the plant over here. First is the Syngonium confetti, and I have a love-hate relationship with this plant. I've tried multiple times to either sell it or give it away, but each time I attempt to, it produces leaves like this, so I hesitate to give it out because look at that. I think previously the Syngonium pink splash is the kind of like the it Syngonium when it comes to pink variegated Syngoniums, and it was kind of hard to get, or I don't know if it's like easier to get now, but the confetti comes really close to it, and I feel like it's a prettier pink variegation compared to the pink splash, because this one you get like the blocks of pink and then like the confetti pink, which is like the splashes of pink on the green leaf. And when it first comes out, the green is also like very white, so I really like that about this one. And maybe you can see it over here too with this one, really pretty, about to unfurl. But when it does mature, it does something like this. It does become like very green, and the pink is not as visible. So I think that's when I get turned off with the plant. But as you can see here, even with the other mature leaves, it looks really pretty. So I don't know, like that's why like sometimes I want to give up on it, sell it, give it away, but then it would like give me pretty leaves and makes me rethink about giving it away. Next is the watermelon peperomia. This is a plant that I bought this year, and actually my favorite plant from spring. But it is a lot smaller now because I did prune it a lot. You might have seen my shorts on it. And as much as I was able to quote unquote successfully take care of a watermelon peperomia, which I'm kind of proud of because I know a lot of people do have a hard time with this plant. And I know it doesn't look as good as when I featured it in my spring or even summer favorites video, because like I said, I did prune it a lot and it's just starting to push out new growth. It just kind of like solidified that peperomias are not for me. I don't really like this plant. I'm not really in love with it or care for it a lot. I mean, when it was my favorite, I was just like, you know, excited and ecstatic that I'm able to successfully take care of a watermelon peperomia. But like Moving forward, I don't think this is a plant that I am keeping. It's something that I'm probably also going to trade out or sell or give away eventually for another plant that I prefer more. But I mean, I'm glad that I was able to prove that I can take care of one, but at the same time, not for me. Next to it is my Synapsis Silver Splash, and as you can see, it has pushed out a new leaf. Really excited about that. And this is a slow growing plant for me for two reasons. One, it is a Synapsis, it is in leca, and I'm not really very on top of nutrients, so that's why it doesn't grow as fast or as quickly compared to my other Synapsis. Second, I do prune it a lot, so as you can see, I make a lot of cuttings on the stems or the vines over here, because once it starts to produce a runner, I just like prune it off. So this one hasn't really had a chance to trail for me because I keep pruning it. As you can see here, a lot of new growth points coming out, and I want to keep it this size for as long as I can because I'm not really sure if I want to let it trail or have it in a pole like the other Synapsis plants. But for now, I just want it like this. It looks pretty, it's very manageable, and I like it that way. And right next to it is my Ficus tiniki. And this plant, I actually accidentally pinched off the top, I think because a plant dropped on it. But as you can see, the new growth coming out is still like straight up, which I'm kind of glad because I'm not ready for this to branch out already. So I'm glad that the new growth is still like continuing straight up. But I really like this Ficus tiniki. This is actually the first ficus that I fell in love with when it comes to like the Ficus elasticus. I do like the white variegation, and I like that this is a highly variegated Ficus tiniki, that you can see a lot of the cream variegation. So I'm really excited for this plant. It is growing a bit slowly, but I do prefer that because again, I'm very much concerned about space, and I think this is going to grow large by next year. I won't be surprised if it would be like up to here, like at the edge of this table by this time around next year. So I'm excited for it. It's one of my favorite plants, and I'm excited to see it grow. And I have the air plant down here, the only air plant I have right now. And yeah, it's doing well so far. And I just water it when I water the Ficus tiniki. And right next to it is the autograph plant. I had this for a while. I did grow this from a cutting, I think back in 2019. And I really like this one. I know it is considered invasive in many places like Florida and Hawaii. It has become more popular as a houseplant though. It has that like Hoya-like leaves, very sturdy, and it's called an autograph plant because you could carve your name on it, and you could see the carving become permanent and the leaves won't die. So that's why it's called an autograph plant. And with this one, it has a lot smaller leaves because I decided to prune it because one of the stems was just like way too long without any leaves. So I decided to prune it and see what happens. And it just started to sprout many new leaves. The one thing that I find funny about this plant though, because even though it comes from like very tropical or very sunny areas like Hawaii and Florida, this doesn't do well outside. Like it can't have direct sun at any point or it will have burns. So kind of like with that one back there. And also the reason that I also keep pruning this and it's not as large as it's supposed to be, considering I had this for like 2 or 3 years now, is because it keeps getting leaf burn every time I put it outside. So I have to like cut off those leaves and keep pruning it down. So one thing about this plant that I really find fascinating, but the ones that I see in Miami and Hawaii don't have that problem. I don't know why this one came from Miami, but I don't know, maybe because it has been an indoor plant for the longest time and bringing it outside, it's just not acclimated to really strong direct sun anymore. And the plants down here, honestly, they're not typically down here. I have them by the windowsill so they can get a little bit more light, especially this one, the philodendron cream splash, so that I could make the cream variegation become more prominent. I got this also as a single leaf cutting, and it has grown so much, but the variegation is not showing up as much, especially considering the leaf that I got was very much variegated. So I don't know if this is a Rio Silver Stripe or a cream splash. I am calling it a cream splash because I think that is like the most common one because even the person I traded with don't really know what it is, but the leaf that I got looked very much like a Philodendron Rio. But like I said, so far this one is just giving more cream splash, maybe silver stripe, and I'm just trying to encourage more of the variegation by giving it more light, which is why I put it by the windowsill, by a south facing window, so that it can get as much light as it can. But as you can see, it's starting to show more of its original variegation, but we will see. And again, like with the Mycans, not sure if I want this trailing or something that I would give something to climb onto. But right now, if I can keep it at this size, I would for as long as I can. And right next to it is my Piper Sylvaticum. I did get this as a gift from Arid Asia. And Piper's is a plant that I discovered earlier this year, I think from one of my TikTok friends. She had the Piper cordatum, which has the pink variegation. But when I saw this, I kind of like prefer it a little bit more because it gives me like anthurium vibes, even though it's not an anthurium. So as you can see with the large leaf over here, it looks very much like an anthurium, but it is not. And the texture feels a little bit rough. It is thinner, and it has started to grow out new growth. I did get this as a long vine, but I had to like propagate it because it wasn't really doing well. I managed to keep like 1 or 2, 3 leaves of it, and then it starts to shoot out new growth, but it's kind of like very small. And this is something that I definitely need to give something to climb on eventually. Honestly, I should probably start now because this is a climbing vine. It's not going to look good trailing, at least from what I've seen. It definitely needs something to support it. So eventually I am going to give it something to climb on. But the leaves are coming out really small, and I think it has a bit of a spider mite problem too. So I have to treat that. Yeah, I do like this plant. It's easy care, I think, for now, at least now that it has fully propagated. It is quite difficult to propagate though, and I've also heard from other people it is very difficult to propagate. Like I said, I had a long vine. I was only probably successful propagating 3 or 4 of them, and it took a while for it to do so. If you're going to get a Piper, I don't recommend importing it. I would just get it off a trade locally, or if you can buy it locally, but it's not something that I recommend be imported. Kind of like with Syndapsus, those plants don't really import well, so I know this is becoming popular, and it's still a lot cheaper to get it imported. Like this one, if I paid for it, it is $10, and I got a really long vine. But like I said, it's not that easy to propagate, and they don't ship well. So just a forewarning, but it is a beautiful plant. Like I said, gives anthurium vibes, but a lot easier care than anthurium. I would give you that because I don't have a lot of luck with anthuriums. Next to it is my Syndapsus exotica. I think this is my last Syndapsus in my collection. I used to have a really large pot of this, but it suffered from root rot, and this is one of the few propagations that I was able to save. And I really like this one because of the huge leaf and the variegation it has. It's really pretty, and I think this has also got mixed with some of my old Argerius plant, but I think it's still exotica. And I had planted this outside on the ground, and then when the weather starts to get cooler, I repotted it back, and so far it's doing well. As you can see, it's pushing out new growth, but it did experience kind of like a bit of a transition from being planted on ground to back in a pot. And so far it's doing well. I do like it smaller though, as opposed to when I had it large, although I also liked it when it was really large, but I'm also okay with it being a small plant. And this one has become a lot more accessible too now, so you could find this pretty much anywhere. This one, the Silver Splash, not as much, but I also seen this becoming more available. But as you can see, the difference between the two when it comes to the variegation, this one has a more like large silver variegation, and this one has a more mosaic-y type of very more muted type of silver variegation. So if you want to see like the difference between the two of the Syndapsus, but honestly with Syndapsus plants the variegation differences is so minute. Just pick one you like, and you don't have to buy all of them. I mean, if you don't want to collect each variety, you don't really have to, but you're not missing out if you just like pick one over the other. I personally like the exotica more though, just because I do think for a plant that is affordable, it looks very expensive. So that's why I like the exotica. So, yep, I really like that. And this one I got from Plant House Alexandria. I really like this one, this pot, and I think it was like $10. And right next to it is my string of turtles, which is Peperomia prostata. And I still like this plant, but like I said, I solidified my opinion when it comes to peperomias. If I'm only going to keep one peperomia in my collection, is this string of turtles. But as you may note, I had a larger pot of it. I tried to downsize it into this 4-inch pot because I feel like I didn't really need a huge pot of it. And so far, I'm glad it's working out well because the string of hearts that I tried to downgrade to a 4-inch pot, not doing well to say the least. But this one I really like because of the turtle back pattern it has on the leaves, especially when it's really plump. I don't know if you can put a close up on it. But this plant also has become very much accessible. I've seen this multiple times at grocery stores even, and for relatively cheap price, like from $10 to $15. So if I do lose this plant, I know I could easily replace it, but it is one of the plants that was high on my wish list when I first started out my plant journey. Because string of turtles, I don't know, turtles for some reason have a close place in my heart. So I was like, oh, turtles, string of turtles. So yeah, definitely if I'm only going to keep one peperomia in my collection, not that I have many, it will definitely be the string of turtles. So moving on to the plants that I have on this table, I have a few more plants that I have in poles and the plants that I have in my mini greenhouse slash terrarium. So let's go over them. First one is my Syngonium albo. Again, one of my favorite house plants. When I was doing videos on this early this year, people were asking, why is yours bushy while others have it in poles and stuff? Well, now it's in pole because back then I had so many propagations in one pot, it wasn't growing as fast, so it just looks like a bushy plant. But now it has grown, it does need support. So I put a pole on it and it's starting to attach to it as well. The leaves are growing large, so I like that. And this one also I got from an import order, like my very first import order, along with my Thai constellation monstera, which you'll see later. And I really like this plant. The only thing is if you water it too much, the leaves get translucent like this, as you can see here with this white leaf. Sometimes it goes away. Most of the times though, this leaf would just die out, especially this one being so fully white. It's not going to survive being overwatered. And also when it gets overwatered, it does get that brown spots on the white leaf. So just have to watch out for that. But this likes to be watered or it dries out pretty quickly. That's why I water it quite often, but sometimes I guess it gets watered way too often. And as you can see with this new growth, it's also coming out purely white as well. With this one, I'm not really concerned with the high amount of white variegation because it is a syngonium. It grows fast, it propagates very easily. So even though it's kind of like, I guess, a quote unquote more uncommon, I don't want to call it rare, but more sought after syngonium, it's not really different from any regular syngonium when it comes to care and propagation. It just propagates just as easy as a regular syngonium. So not worried about this plant at all when it comes to like having issues because it bounced back pretty easily or it can propagate very easily from this plant. And right next to it is my Hoya carrii. As you can see, I finally gave it support, which I wish I kind of gave sooner so that the gaps in between the leaves are not as huge. I'm contemplating kind of like pruning it down back again, but I don't know. We will see. I did pot my regular Hoya carrii with my reverse variegata Hoya carrii. So far, they're doing well together. This one I did prune too because it was like shooting up runners. And I think it has stopped growing for this growing season. But we will see what's going on with that. And I think this one is also pushing out new growth. Is that new growth? No, I think I just put it like way too much times on that side because again, pushing out runners. And I did like cut it again here because it was pushing out runners. So again, I'm thinking of maybe like cutting it here again so that it's not so wide in between those. But we will see what happens with it. I mean, I still like this plant. This is one of the plants that I also wanted originally as part of my wish list when I first started. So I don't think I'm going to get rid of this. Plus, it's very hard to find a plant like this one. Hoya kerrii are usually sold as single leaf cuttings. I don't know why, but it's so hard to find it as a full plant. And when you do, I think it's still very pricey. So that's why I'm also not letting go of this plant. Plus, it's an easy care, low maintenance plant. It just chills here. It doesn't really like require a lot of care. And I really like it, the heart-shaped leaf of a Hoya kerrii. And right next to it is my Syngonium chia pants. As you can see, it is very huge. I definitely need to add extension to it. As you can see over there, which I might have to do for a future video. But yeah, so this one I also got a single leaf cutting. And I really like this one because it reminds me of philodendrons. But it's so much easier care than other philodendrons. It kind of reminds me of the philodendron gloriosum a little bit, to be honest. But I really like the large leaves and I really like the way it grows. I did grow this outside for the growing season, so I think that's why it grew really fast and it really attached itself to the planks. So this is the only plant, to be honest, that I successfully grew on a plank. I tried my other plants to grow on a plank, like my Syndapsus, for it to shingle on planks. It wasn't successful, but this one really took to it, and it's just, I don't know how to extend it further though. I was thinking of repotting it, propagating, and make it shorter so that I don't have to like extend it or it won't be as tall. But we will see what I'm gonna do with it and what happens. And then right next to it is my Epipremnum pinnatum. So this one I've also talked extensively in previous videos. It's one of my favorite plants this season. It did suffer from mealybugs at one point. I finally got rid of it. I think so. I haven't seen any yet. And this is also kind of like with the Stadleiana. I combined the Orea and Albo together. Although the Orea is not as variegated, as you can see with the newer leaves, hardly any variegation or very little variegation. And the Albo is down here. It is not growing as fast as the Orea. I did get the Orea as a much larger plant though. But the Albo is catching up, and I did plant them together to save space. Eventually I might have to separate them, but we will see. I do like the Albo though, even though it's not growing as fast or as large leaves, it is maturing a lot faster. As you can see, it already has the fenestrations and all of that. So I'm really excited for this one. I also just recently extended the pole. I also gave it a D-shaped moss bowl, and it works well for it. I think it helps it mature a lot faster, but we'll see what's going to happen moving forward. And I might have to either separate the plants or just propagate them and see what happens. But yeah, that is my Epipremnum pinnatum, Albo, and Orea. So before I talk about the plants inside the mini greenhouse, let's talk about the plants I have on either side of it. First is my golden pothos. This one is also a propagation of an old golden pothos plants that I have, but it's so variegated with the golden variegation, the Oreo variegation. I don't think this is a Hawaiian pothos, but it's very close to it, as you can see, especially with this leaf. It's also giving like Gisenia vibes. So that's why I decided to keep it. Plus, with golden pothos, it's really hard to say no to it. I know it's a basic plant, but when you get something as variegated as this, it's really hard to pass it up. I've also tried growing this on a pole or a plank. Didn't really work out, so I kind of like just repotted this in a 4-inch pot and see what happens from here. Eventually, I might try again repotting it and giving it a pole, which probably would do a lot better than the Epipremnum pinnatum Orea over there, and just have this one in a pole instead. We will see, but I do like this plant. Golden pothos, can never go wrong with it. Right next to it is the Anthurium crystallinum, and this one came from an import order as well from Arid Asia, which was gifted to me, and this was one of their picks to send to me. I kind of like want to stay away from anthuriums because I don't think I do well with them, but this one was a gift, and this one is a new leaf under my care. There's another one coming in, but I could already see it like a little bit torn already. I think it's just, it starts to unfurl, but the rest of the leaf won't unfurl, so it got torn. So it has 3 more of the original leaves it came with, but as you can see, this one is already starting to yellow. I did cut off one leaf that was a new growth, but it was just like yellowing so fast. I think it just got burned. So with anthuriums, I still find them tricky. I don't think I have gotten the hang of it. So that's why when I went to the Ecuagenera pop-up, even though they had anthuriums at great prices, I held off buying one until I know how to properly take care of them. So if this one, once I figure out how to take care of this, then maybe I'll venture into more anthuriums. But right now, I'm just trying to take care of this one and keep this one alive. And on this corner, I do have my string of hearts variegata. And this one also I've started to trail, but I did propagate some of it, which we'll see in my mini greenhouse later on. And I really like this one, string of hearts variegated. And as I mentioned earlier or alluded earlier, my regular string of hearts not doing so well, which is fine because I have this one. And if I have to choose between the two, I'd rather keep this one instead and have this one as part of my collection. So yeah, very beautiful, very variegated. I tried to give it a lot of light. And honestly, a lot of the plants that you saw in the other tables, normally I would put them on the windowsill so they can get maximum amount of light. But for the purposes of this video, I placed them over there. So let's look at the plants in the greenhouse. Let's turn to the plants in the mini greenhouse. I got this from Michael's on discount. Originally it's $70, 75% off. I got it for $20. And honestly, as much as I love this, I wouldn't pay any more than $20 for this one because I get why it was placed on clearance. It's not well made. So with this one especially, it's already kind of like very wanky. I had to like fix it once already because it came off. I mean, it's still functional and everything, but I just have to be very careful when I handle it. So it's a great greenhouse. Wouldn't pay more than $20 for it though. But let's take a look at the plants that I have inside. So I'm going to take the plants one by one because like I said, this one cannot be opened like that. It will just break. But okay, first one, Hoya Carrii Alba Marginata. I got this off Rewild for like $15. Most expensive plant, to be honest, when you consider the size of it. And I was told that this was going to become a plant. I did check with them because I was kind of like, is this a single leaf cutting or is this something that would turn into plant? They told me it would turn to a plant eventually, but it never did. I haven't repotted this though, so I'm not really sure if it has a node or not, but if it stays this way, I didn't mind. But for $15, it is a very expensive single leaf cutting Hoya, especially if it never becomes a full plant. And next one is a Hoya carnosa compacta variegata. So this is a wishlist plant for a long time. I paid $35 for this for a much larger plant, a plant that's in like a 4-inch pot with like 3 or 4 plants. And I bought this from a plant shop in Chicago called the Plantier. But when I brought it back to Maryland, the leaves just started dying off and I was left with one plant. And so far, and I'm glad that this one survived and has been pushing out new growth and a very variegated new growth, as you can see with the latest one. So I'm really excited about this. It is a very slow growing Hoya, but I don't mind it. I like that I'm able to keep it in the mini greenhouse. And this is the same way I started out with my regular Hoya compacta, a very small cutting that I got off clearance from Lowe's, and now it's like a full 4-inch pot. So I'm hoping the same will happen with this Hoya Carrii compacta. Just have to be patient with it because it takes forever to grow. And here is one of my propagations of my string of hearts variegata. As mentioned earlier, I was able to trade one of these for a painted lady philodendron. This one I've been meaning to give away for the longest time, and I think I'm going to give it away. So we'll see what happens. Watch out. Next I have is the Silver Glory. So I got this from New York when I visited the plant district. I got it for $35 in like a 4-inch, 5-inch pot, and this is what I have left of it. And I kind of see now what people are saying about the Silver Glory. It's not as easy care as the other string of hearts, even compared to the string of hearts variegata. And this is what I have left of the mother plant. This one is a propagation of it that I plan to give away, but I also kind of see what people are saying about the silver glory, that it reverts very easily back to the regular string of hearts. But I don't know if it's actually reverting or if it's in its juvenile form. It just looks so much like the regular string of hearts, or if you don't give it enough light, it just looks a lot like the regular string of hearts. But eventually it would become or look a lot more like the silver glory pattern that we know if it's just given more light and if it's given time to mature. But you can see with the new growth, it just looks like the regular string of hearts. In the greenhouse is the Hoya I also started out with a very small cutting of this from an import order. And considering where it started, it has grown pretty large. And I know this has become a lot more common as well. I've seen this in nurseries, and I think it also appeared in big box stores, though I haven't seen it in big box stores yet. And it's a wonderful plant. Like I said, if you're into like the string of plants, this is another option, like with the Discidia, that I prefer compared to like the string of pearls or the string of dolphins and whatnot. I do feel that these are much easier care and much more lower maintenance compared to those plants. And I do like the shape of the leaves. It's also kind of like with the Peperomia prestata, gives that like turtle back pattern. And again, very low maintenance. It is a slow grower, but like I said, considering I started out with a very small cutting of it and it became this, it has come a really long way. Next is the Peperomia Hope. This is the last Peperomia that I have in my collection. Also have a love-hate relationship with this, like with all of my peperomias. I did get this off a trade. I have seen this pop up in big box stores, but this is also a peperomia that was trendy, sought after when I first started my plant journey. It is a beautiful plant, but again, peperomias are just not really my kind of plant. It is more succulent type compared to the watermelon peperomia, and it does trail. It looks good trailing, but I've also keep pruning this constantly just to keep it small and also for it to not have huge gaps between the leaves, but sometimes it still forms that you can see with the new growth over here. And it is in my greenhouse, my mini greenhouse, even though it is a peperomia. It kind of thrives there. Well, mostly because it is in a small terracotta pot. It dries out way too quick. That's why I keep it in the greenhouse. But so far it's doing well. It doesn't mind the high humidity. Although sometimes I lose leaf because of this. I actually just pruned a couple that was, too much humidity, too saturated with moisture that I had to like pluck them off. But it's a great plant to have if you like the succulent type plants, but you don't want to take care of succulents because they're a little bit too high maintenance, or you don't really do well with succulents. I would recommend this if you want to give it a shot. And this is my Begonia Immaculata. I believe this is the dwarf version, at least according to the person that I traded with. And this is my first and only begonia. And a Begonia Immaculata is something that I've also wished for because it's also one of those trendy plants. But when it became mass produced by Costa Farms, I didn't really like the way it looked, at least the one that Costa Farms was mass producing. But I did see Begonia Immaculata when I was in New York, and also lately when I was at the Green Street Gardens, like the large versions of it. That to me is more of the Begonia Immaculata that I like or fell in love with compared to the Costa Farms one. So with this one, like I said, this is a dwarf version. I prefer this one because it could fit my mini greenhouse. And again, I don't know if I could handle a large one, but I do like the large one. So eventually I might get a large one. But with this one, it does well in the greenhouse because begonia loves humidity. And even with this one, as you can see, it still has like dried out leaves when I forget to water it on time. And this one also started out as a cutting. It has become fully established since. It is a fast grower. I feel like it's kind of like a syngonium when it comes to care, or at least the rate of propagation. But I don't know if I'm sold on begonias. Like, I feel like this is one of those, like, I like only this type of begonia. I don't think I'll be into other types of begonias. But we'll see. We'll never know. Last one in my greenhouse is a prop, and you can see there's two more in there. I'm only going to show you one of them because this is the one that has an actual growth progress, and it's this one. This is my El Choco Red. I bought this from Ecuagenera for $65, and honestly, with how much I paid for this, I paid $65. It's all down to chunks. I am not really surprised because even though I got this from a pop-up shop, it was still imported from Ecuador. So it still went through that import process and import shop. And a lot of people have said El Choco Reds don't import well. And I thought, getting it from a pop-up would make a difference. Not really, because like I said, it was still imported. You just picking it up in a different manner. And at least I get to choose from the El Choco Reds that was available. I mean, I was hopeful that I won't have to start from chunks, but at least all the chunks that I have made so far from the plant are surviving and are producing growth, with this one being the fastest one. It has already like 2 leaves and pushing out new ones. Very tiny leaves though. I haven't checked the root system yet. The root system of philodendrons, I find, at least with this type of philodendrons, is very delicate. So I try not to disturb it and check it all the time. I just like let it be and water when necessary. As you can see, this one desperately needs watering. So I'm going to do that right after I film this video. But yeah, the El Choco Red. This is the plant that made me want to take a risk or try out climbing philodendrons finally. So I'm really hoping this one would eventually work out. I'm patient with it. I honestly prefer to grow it this way as long as it becomes successful, because it grows acclimated to my space and I won't have to worry about constant humidity for it and everything. But right now it is in the greenhouse and I have like 4 more chunks of the El Choco Red. I only plan to keep one, so eventually I would either also sell, trade, and give away all those other philodendron El Choco Red chunks. But as mentioned in the previous video, I am trying to do or filming a video on the El Choco Red process of me propagating it from when I picked it up from Ecuagenera pop-up to hopefully when it becomes a more established plant. But it's going to be a while. It's going to be a long process. So hopefully with this one, I'll be successful with at least this one. And last one on this table-ish is this orchid, this mini orchids that was gifted to me by Houseplant Resource Center after I collaborated with them. So if you want to check out that video, I'll link it up here and also down in the description. And the last section on this side are the hanging plants. And so let's start with the 2 in this corner. First one is the Snow Queen pothos that I have in a 4-inch pot hanging, and I really like that one. I do put it here because I want to keep its white variegation. I don't want it to become like too green. It looks a bit more like a Gisenia or a golden pothos. So I try to give it a lot of light as much as I can to maintain that white variegation. And right next to it, pull that aside, and right next to it is my Hoya carnosa tricolor. This is the Hoya Crimson Queen, but as you can see here, it has a Hoya Crimson Princess mixed in. And I've checked this plant before, and I was thinking it might be a plant that was potted with the Crimson Queen accidentally, but it actually comes from the same stem as the Crimson Queen. So I don't know why the variegation suddenly switched, even though it came from the same vine, but I like it. And it has a lot of white leaves that start out as very pink leaves. So I really like this one, Hoya carnosa tricolor. And definitely if I have to pick one Hoya to keep, this one is definitely a contender. I'm not going to say definitively that this is the one that I'm going to keep because I have lots of other great Hoyas, but definitely a strong contender. On here is my Shangri-La pothos. It has grown so much. I also started out with like a single cutting that has 4 leaves on it, and I just keep wrapping it around the topsoil as it grows. But this is also a plant that I probably need to give something to climb on. I don't know if it's gonna look good as a trailing plant. I really haven't seen anyone have it as a trailing plant. They usually give it a pole to climb on, but we will see, or at least some type of trellis, because it's not really a plant that grows huge, even if you give it something to climb on, at least from what I've seen. But it's a very unique pothos plant because with its like cone shape, very spinach looking like leaves. So I think that's why this is a more unique hyperpenum to have. But yeah, I mean, it's grown so much though. So I think I'm also gonna like prune it, propagate it, and give some away. We will see. And of course, the big three on this wall, the Cebu Blue Pothos, the Hoya Crimson Princess, and my Manjula Pothos. So here, the Cebu Blue Pothos, it has finally started to trail, and it did take a while for it to trail. One reason is I do keep pruning it. Every time it produces runners, I just prune it. But that's how I kind of like maintain my trailing house plants to make them look full and bushy as it trails, is just constantly pruning it. And so far it has paid off. And both of these plants, if I didn't mention, are both in self-watering planters. Look just how pretty that Cebu Blue Pothos is. I did consider putting it in a moss bowl too because it also fenestrates, kind of like with the Epipanum pinnatum alba and aurea. But so far I like it trailing. But maybe eventually I'll try to get it to grow on a moss bowl. But for now I do like it as a trailing house plant. It looks prettier that way. And right next to it is the Hoya Crimson Princess. Also grown so much. The only thing is I haven't seen this bloom for me. I mean, I haven't seen any of my Hoyas bloom for me. But if there's a plant that should bloom or I expect to bloom, is this one because it is my most mature Hoya. But I still like it either way. As you can see, the white variegation on this is very much prominent. The leaves are a bit narrower than what I normally see from other Hoya Crimson Princesses out there, but I still like it. It does produce leaves that are just green, which makes it a regular Hoya carnosa. But again, I love this plant, one of my OG Hoyas, and I think it's also one of the plants that I probably keep forever. I don't know. And right next to it is my Manjula Pothos. This Manjula Pothos is actually trailing a lot longer than it looks because I have a couple of the vines loop around and I kind of like put it on top and let it trail down again because it was just trailing so long. And I'll insert a clip here to show you how long it actually is, but it is my longest trailing house plant. I keep debating back and forth if I should just prune it now or just let it keep growing. We will see, but as you can see with the new growth, it's still looking good. And the only reason that I have pruned this lately is if it starts to produce reverted vines. I think kind of like with this area where I pruned it, it was just like producing green leaves. And I just want to keep any leaves on this plant to be a variegated one. So once it start like producing reverted ones, I just keep pruning them off. But as you can see, this one, very white, very variegated. Yeah, I love this Manjula Pothos. One of my best pothos in my collection, to be honest. Right next to the Cebu Blue Pothos. Both of them are great. So that is my plant collection, but wait, there's more. Over here. So this is not here, as you might have seen earlier. I just moved it right now. It's on the other side of the room, right next to a south-facing window or a west-facing window, but moved here so that they're all together. But as you can see, this is my Thigh Constellation Monstera. This is the Thigh-Con that I originally imported back in 2020. It used to be a much larger plant, and I propagated it, traded off the propagating for a Monstera albo, which I have since killed. And as many of you know, I also won a Costa Farms Thigh-Con, and if you've watched my latest updates, I've also killed that one. So, and a lot of people had opinions on it, but it is what it is. But I'm glad that I still have this one, and this one is doing well under my care. Not too worried about this one. It actually has a new leaf coming out, and I've also noticed lately that it has a grow point over there. So I am hoping that this grows and thrives and that new grow point actually become a new plant, so that I can make good on my giveaway. Because if you've been following me for a while, I've been promising a Ficon giveaway. Haven't done it because the Cost of Farms one died. So if this one grows some more, hopefully I'll be able to do that Ficon giveaway as promised. And right here is my Synapsis Shibuya Moonlight. This is the one that's from the Costa Farms Live Trends collection that I got from Costco. I originally had this plant as cuttings when I got it from an import order and also from a nursery that I paid way too much for. But those didn't really survive, and I finally got this from Costco as mentioned, and so far it is doing well. It is a wonderful plant to have. Highly recommend it, especially if you like Synapsis plants like I do. And below it is my Synapsis Jade Satin, which is in a self-watering planter. It's also starting to trail, and I've been meaning to hang it up in the wall right next to the Cebu Blue Pothos, but I do need to get a new ring planter for it so that I could put it up there. And unlike my other Synapses, I don't plan on putting this in a moss bowl because I do think it looks good trailing. This one is my Philodendron Splendid. This is actually inside my prop box. I just took it out, and this is one of my original Philodendron climbing plants that I first got, and this came from the Arid Asia import order, but it was a gift from Arid Asia. And this one is a plant that I picked out myself, but it's not doing well, unfortunately. And I picked this one because they said it is a good philodendron to start with. It is a cross between the verrucosum and a melanochrysum, and it's supposed to be easier care than either of those plants. But as you can see, not doing so well, even though I received it as a pretty healthy plant. And I actually got this two pretty much around the same time. I might have gotten this a bit earlier, but as you can see, it hasn't pushed out any new growth yet. That one is another node. It's not like a new growth coming out from this one, but I'm still hopeful. I'm keeping it in the prop box and see what happens with it. And another plant from the prop box is this Brandtianum. This is my second shot at a Brandtianum. The first one that I got was a cutting from Facebook Marketplace. Didn't really work out for me. I give it out to a friend, and this one I got from a plant trade. And since I was getting it for free, I was like, you know what, take a shot on it again. And this is the only one to survive off that trade, and I'm hoping this one works out. I started to give it support because I do think the Brandtianum looks better as a climbing plant as opposed to a trailing house plant. So I'm gonna give it a proper moss bowl eventually, but also I've been keeping this in a prop box until like it becomes a properly established house plant. That's my plant collection, the bulk of it at least. I do have some more downstairs, my floor plants that I'm going to show you in a bit, but this is the majority of my plant collection. As mentioned, I tried to keep it on one side. This one I do keep on the other side so that it will get a little bit more light. But ideally, I try to keep them all on one side so that, it's easier to maintain, easier to monitor, and just, make sure each of the plants are properly taken care of when I have them all in one area. Right now, let's go downstairs and check out my floor plants that are not in my bedroom because they're too big to fit. But yeah, so let's go and check it out. So on this side, I kind of cram my plants a little bit. It's just, a matter of getting them inside and close to the windows. This is a south-facing window. So here I have my mango tree that I grew from seed a couple years back, maybe 3 years now. My Thamatophyllum bifinatifidum, which I need to prune, but I kind of hate to prune it because the leaves are so gorgeous, but I have to eventually. But as you can see here, look how huge this one is. So really great plant. And my avocado also growing bigger. I tried to make it branch a little bit, but it's not really branching, but it's doing well. I mean, not like my mango tree, but it is growing. And here is my Monstera deliciosa that I was also struggling with this year that I had to repot like a couple of times. I was able to save this, unlike my Ficon when it was down to one leaf. And this one is actually new growth from the leaf that I tried to save, and I already cut off that last remaining leaf. And My pearls and jade pothos also not doing well. It actually had a lot of yellowing leaves before I started filming. I just like took it out, but there she is. And so those are the plants on this one corner. And as you can see, I already have my humidifier up here because these are all tropical plants, but as you can see, it's already out of water. It's like 39 degrees. It's like 39% humidity without it. So, and these are all like tropical plants. So especially the mango and an avocado, they really need it, or else they'll have pests or they'll just like start browning and yellowing. The opposite side of it, I have 4 plants. My fiddler fig, which has grown really tall that I have to prune again. And I usually like prune the bottom to give it like a tree-like shape, but it has grown so much since I've cut it. And if you know anything about my fiddler fig, it started out as a rescue plant. And I am fortunate that I don't have the same issues as others with it, but look how huge that leaf is compared to my hand. That's a huge leaf. And then this is a Monstera deliciosa that I picked up from Trader Joe's because it was sport variegated. However, the sport variegation only shows when it's a new leaf. Once it matures, it's just kind of like all green, and the sport variegation is very faint, like you can't even like really see it anymore once the leaf matures. So turns out this is just like a regular Monstera, to be honest, but I still like it. But I might actually I'm gonna see if I could plant this outside next growing season and see what happens with it. But I mean, it's a great plant. Monstera deliciosa is always like, a nice plant to have in your plant collection. And look at this leaf, it's so huge. And this one as well, it does have watermarks though. And right over here, close the blinds, but this is my Ficus Audrey, a favorite plant of mine. It's branching so much. I did notch this a couple times this year, but it just started branching everywhere. Like it branched over here, and also on top. It's like it's branched 3 ways. So I'm really excited about this plant and really happy about this one. Definitely one of my favorites this year. So you might see this in my 2022 favorites video. But if you want to know how I was able to branch this, I do have a video on making your ficus plant branch, and I used this one as an example, so go check it out. The very last one is this pineapple plant. It is a much larger plant, but when I had to bring it inside, I did cut off the leaves, so you can see like only the 4 new leaves, one incoming, a couple incoming, that is like full leaves, because if not, I won't be able to fit it inside because it got really huge. And this is my 3rd year with this plant. I did grow this from a store-bought pineapple, and so far it hasn't grown a new pineapple for me. They said they should by the 3rd year. It is its 3rd year this year. It didn't, so I'm hoping next year it would, but I don't know. I don't really see a new fruit coming in, and hopefully one day it would produce a fruit for me. And that's my entire plant collection for fall 2022. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, I'm really happy with the current state of my plant collection. I've been working towards this in the last year or so, and I'm really happy with the types of plants that I have, the number of plants that I have. By my count, I think I have about 55 to 57 plants in total, depending if you want to count 1 or 2 plants that I still have duplicate. But overall, I'm happy. My target was to get under 60. Eventually, I would want to get under 50 plants. But right now, I'm really happy with having about 57 plants in my collection, and also the varieties of plants that I have and the overall condition that they're in. So I'm really excited for my plant collection, and I have to be really honest, especially when we try to get out of the pandemic. I mean, we're still kind of in the pandemic, but transitioning back into the quote-unquote normal life, it was a hard transition with my plant collection during quarantine and kind of like post-quarantine. And I know it was like that for a lot of people. So that's why within the last year or so, I've been really trying hard to properly curate my plant collection and really make decisions on which plants that I really want to have in my plant collection versus those plants that I felt like I was just holding on to and hoarding for no reason at all. And I have given up a lot of plants, and some of them, I'm not gonna lie, it was hard for me to give up, but at the same time, I'm glad I kind of did. And the plants that I have given up, I know I could get them back if I really want another plant like that. But so far, a lot of the plants that I have given up, I honestly don't miss. Well, sometimes I do for a couple of them, but for the most part, I don't really regret giving out or sharing the love or sharing the wealth when it comes to my plant collection, because I do recognize it is also a great privilege that I have the plant collection that I have. And some of the plants that I have, I know are very sought after by other plant people, and it's hard for them to get it. And I have it in my plant collection. So I really feel very grateful and blessed with the plant collection that I have. But at the same time, this is not it for my plant collection. It is going to continue to grow and change, because if you know me, I like to experiment and change it up when it comes to my plant collection. But since I've set out this goal like a year or maybe even 2 years ago to really curate and like pare down my plant collection to the ones that I want, I feel like I finally achieved it after all this time. And I'm really glad to reach this milestone with my plant collection. And because of that, I know it's going to be a more enjoyable and happier journey with my plants moving forwards. But of course, there's still going to be ups and downs. And you know what? I'm going to talk about that in upcoming videos when I do my Vlogmas, not Vlogmas, after my fall plant collection. If you've seen my previous video before this one, my fall favorites video, I talk about that I'm going to start Vlogmas already. I'm not going to wait until December, but I'm still going to be doing the videos that I normally do for Vlogmas. I'm not just calling them Vlogmas. So we're going to do like a whole year in review with the plants that I bought this year, the plants that I got, the plants that I lost, my top 10 plants, my future plans for my plants, and all of those good stuff. So watch out for those videos. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, my 2023 Plantiful planner is now available on Amazon. I'll have the links down in the description. And once I have the physical copies on my hand, I will do an official launch here on YouTube and on Instagram. But the reason that I'm soft launching it now is to allow you to order it already, because unlike other Amazon items that you might be able to get within 2 days, the planner is print on demand. So it might take like a couple weeks for you to get it, maybe longer because of the holiday rush. So if you want to get your copy now, you can order it right now. So you'll get it by Thanksgiving or by Christmas, depending on when you're watching this video. Since it is a 2023 planner, you kind of do want to get it before the year starts, whether you want it for yourself or to give someone this holiday season. And Amazon has a great return policy. So in case you got it and you didn't like it, you can always return it on Amazon. But I guarantee you, you would like it, because this is a planner created and designed by a plant parent for plant parents. And just looking at my Amazon account, I only had like 3 people return my books and my planners out of the hundreds that I've sold. So thank you so much, by the way, to everyone who have bought my planners and my books over the last 2 or 3 years. When did I come up with the Pothos book? I think in 2020, and the planner last year. So I really appreciate that. And I also hope that you'll also support my 2023 Plantiful planner. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new here, please do subscribe. I come up with videos every week. And if you haven't yet, check out these videos up here until my next one. But until then, I see you. I appreciate you. Take care of yourself and each other, and have a plentiful day. Bye.